Well, I'm joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, a senior fellow at the foreign policy think tank Defence Priorities. Daniel, thanks very much indeed for your time. We've been having a look at the scale of the gains made in the last few days and the last 24 hours. Extraordinary. Could you see that? Could you have foreseen that?
I did not. I did not think that Ukraine was going to go there. I really thought that the counteroffensive in Kherson in the south is where they were going to put most of their effort. And it started to look like they actually wanted Russia to think that, because Russia had actually moved some troops from the Izium, the Kharkiv area down south into the Kherson area in order to meet that offensive. Now, they succeeded down there, the Russians did, because they inflicted extraordinary casualties on the Ukrainians. But the weakness up in the Izium area, when Ukraine then went in with larger number of forces than Russia had in the entire area, it was pretty easy to rout them out of there. So we do have to keep in mind, though, that there were not that many Russian troops up there. And even though there's a huge number of square kilometers that have been captured, it's not quite as significant strategically as it appears on the ground.
That's an interesting point, because the figures look startling, don't they? I think they were talking about outnumbering Russians 8-1, which sounds a pretty phenomenal situation to find yourself in, really. So what do you think, then, is the likely response from Russia now? We can't expect this to be, they're going to draw a line and say we won't go back there.
Right. Yeah. I think that looking at Russia historically and looking at Putin specifically, they always respond with something. I don't see any chance that Putin is just going to, cow his shoulders and say, well, darn, they got me. I mean, he's going to have some kind of a response and retaliatory move. And I expect them probably to put more effort into the Donbass and probably try to push a little bit harder, or they may even try to go to a mobilization, which up to this point they have refused to do. But I don't know what they're going to do, but I feel confident that they're going to do something. And under any circumstances, as I just published a little while ago today in the publication 1945, this war has a long way to go.
Yeah, and you talk about potentially mobilization. I mean, very interesting move to make when there is a sense that perhaps morale within the Russian forces at the moment is probably pretty low.
Well, anytime you get defeated like that, I mean, anyone's going to have their morale diminished, just like the Ukrainians did when they lost Mariupol and then Severodonetsk and then Lysychansk, and yet they were able to recover from that. And that's how wars go. It's not like because this thing happened today, that's it, Russia's going to fold and collapse any more than Ukraine did after those series of losses. They finally got their stuff together and they stopped, and then they made a counterattack. And we can probably see in the weeks and months ahead that Russia will probably do the same thing, because, as you just pointed out, they still have somewhere around 170,000, 200,000 troops in Ukraine. And right now, they're not going anywhere.
And when they've got troops of that sort of scale, that sort of numbers, we've been looking at some of the debris, the damage, the destroyed tanks, etc., and ordnance. Is that really a marked amount of kit that they're losing, or have they got plenty in reserve?
I mean, anytime you lose that amount of stuff, it's going to hurt. But they do have literally thousands more armored vehicles, tanks, and artillery pieces and armored personnel carriers in their inventory that they could call upon. But without question, some of those lost were actually some of the modern T-90 tanks, a couple of companies worth of them, because they did not expect to have to move so quickly. When the force came in there from the west, they didn't have time to get them, boxed up and ready to go and to travel back over there. So they lost them, and it's going to hurt. There's no doubt about it.
It is an extraordinary situation at the moment. Daniel, thank you very much indeed. Daniel L. Davis joining us.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.